You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast, season 3, episode number 97. Does Matt Boyd do it for you, Cub fans? Don't forget to listen, download, review, most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Follow on all the socials, Fly the W670 on Twitter, Instagram, and Fly the W on Facebook, or email us at flythew670@gmail.com. All right, Crawly, midweek. And right after we recorded the episode last, we got some overnight news from our guy, Jon Heyman, that the Cubs made a move on the pitching front.
Yeah, it's funny. We made a wish list, right? And I had this wish list. It's up here right now. And we kind of layered it in different tiers. So for me, the tier 1 was Corbin Burns, Vlad Guerrero, Juan Soto, Devin Williams, Willie Adames, and Kyle Higashioka. Those were based on Cubs positional needs, right? And then tier 2 for me was Roki Sasaki, Pete Alonso, Brent Rooker, Tanner Scott, Gary Sanchez. Tier 3, Walker Buehler, Ryan McMahon, Anthony Santander, Carlos Estevez, Christian Vasquez. So the guy that they got didn't necessarily check that box. That was Monday, very early Monday morning. Jon Heyman breaks it. Matt Boyd gets $29 million for 2 years, $14.5 million a year, plus $1 million performance bonuses. So he can make $500K each year of the deal if he hits certain bonuses. So, the Athletic had Boyd ranked 36 in their free agent board of top 40. Only Jose Quintana and Max Scherzer were lower ranked as far as pitchers were concerned. Jose Quintana is basically there with them at 37, and then Scherzer was 39. So, Dustin, definitely not a top-tier pitcher, right?
No, not top tier. I mean, I'm mixed on this. This day and age, it sounds crazy, but 2-year, $29 million is kind of a drop in the bucket these days, right? For a starting pitcher. So he kind of fills the void of two people, right? He's Drew Smyly and he's Kyle Hendricks. And now maybe Jordan Wicks moves to the bullpen, or Javier Assad moves to the bullpen. Probably Jordan Wicks, because you're getting a little lefty heavy, right? If this guy is actually a starter. But he can pitch in the bullpen. He can pitch as a starter. He pitched a handful of innings last year. They were pretty good. In his career, he likes to give up the long ball. That's not good. And he's broken down a whole bunch. That's also not good. So, yeah, I mean, this can't be it. But, this helps the bullpen. It helps the starting rotation. But this can't be it. I mean, and it's a big if he can stay healthy.
Right, and then he hasn't in his career. He's a 10-year MLB veteran, right? And he made his debut for the Blue Jays in 2015, and then he was traded to the Tigers at the trade deadline. So from 2016 to 2020, he's even back in his prime, Dustin, like when he was healthy. He was a slightly below average league starter. Like he's a 4 or 5 at best for Detroit with a 4.75 ERA. The breakdown part, 2021, his season ended due to a torn flexor tendon, similar to what Nico has, but it's different with a pitcher. Signed with the Giants, but never pitched for them. He was on the IL with the left elbow sprain. Traded to the Mariners at the trade deadline, made 10 relief appearances. Returned to the Tigers in 2023, made 15 starts, and then had to have Tommy John surgery. Unsigned in 2024, but the Guardians decided to kick the tires in June. And I heard you talking this morning with on the Mully and Haw show. He has that Carter Hawkins Cleveland connection. But
Stink,
Carter
Crawly. It's called Guardian Stink. Guardian Stink all over him.
His first start for the Guardians was against the Cubs. He pitched 5 1/3 innings, gave up 1 run, struck out 6 batters. He made 7 more starts and finished the regular season with a 2.72 ERA. 46 strikeouts, 13 walks, 39 2/3 innings. He started 3 games in the postseason for Cleveland, gave up 1 run in 11 2/3 innings. He pitched the clincher against his old team, the Tigers, struck out 14 batters. So, I mean, when you look at this, Dustin, it's kind of a, like you said, it's just a mixed bag. He throws, a four-seam fastball mostly, and then the changeup is the big pitch. He's using his slider less and the sinker and curve a little bit more, but it's not like he's a guy that throws with a lot of heat. He's not a power pitcher. The sample size looked good for Cleveland, but I mean, how much can you say off 39 2/3 innings? You know what I mean?
Right. It's super small. Obviously, Carter Hawkins. This has got Carter Hawkins' name all over it, right? all
Right.
over it. So like, okay, okay, Mr. General Manager, let's see what you got. Let's see how good you are at evaluating.
When I look at things though, and I guess the things that get me nervous is, again, Drew Smiley or Kyle Hendricks, those guys, like you said, maybe he's replacing them. But for me, more than anything, those guys at least kind of stayed healthy. They gave you innings.
Right. And they ate innings, right. This is not, on paper, this is not an innings eater. Not an innings eater. But again, he does do a couple of things. He can fill up the role at the back end of the rotation, or he can be a bullpen guy, or he can go back and forth between the two. He is a lefty. And this is cheap these days. This is not a lot of money these days.
The concern I have about cheap, though, is I think cheap really is relative term depending on how much money you have to work with. If you see on the screen, Dustin, I have Boyd's numbers there. I mean, if you look at his starts, and he's mostly a starter here, he hasn't started 30 games since 2019. So, I mean, he doesn't throw a lot of innings. You talked about the long ball. If you take a look at his home runs per 9, most of the time he was kind of above average, like you said, as far as giving up home runs. The times that he wasn't, it was because of small sample size. And so this just, to me, I guess when I look at it, I'm just not super impressed. I know this is something that Bruce Levine said, Odyssey Insider, Score Insider, and with Marquee. He said he's definitely an impact pitcher, but to get the most out of him, I think they're going to have to be creative. Like, what does that even mean?
I think what I said, and we got Bruce coming on tomorrow with Mully and Haw. This might not be out by the time he's on. He's on at 8:25, so you can go back and rewind and listen back. We'll ask him what that means specifically, but I'm interpreting, I don't know, is that he's a guy that can help you out in the back end of the rotation and potentially the back end of the bullpen.
So how many starts would you say for Matt Boyd would be a successful season and make this a successful signing?
Well, is it starts or is it innings, right? I'm just saying, because at the moment, I don't know that he is exclusively a starter.
In 2021, he threw 78 and 2/3 innings, 2022, 13 innings, 2023, 70 innings, 2024, 39. The most he's thrown is 185 innings in 2019.
Okay, how about 100 innings?
100 innings.
100 innings.
Okay, so 100 innings. Yep. And so when we look at the Cubs' projected rotation, this is right now, today, when we record this on December 4th, Shota Imanaga, Justin Steele, Jamison Tyone, Matthew Boyd, and then, like you said, you go Javier Assad because he's a righty. But Dustin, I think Javier Assad, when you talk about small sample sizes, he can do really well as a starter in small sample sizes. But over a season, I think he projects better to me in the bullpen.
Well, right, but I mean, what's Ben Brown going to be, right? I mean, they've got a bunch of arms, right? And you've got the nice stat, you've got a nice graphic up there right now. Jordan Wicks, Hayden Wisniewski, you got Boyd in there. But how about some of the other guys? How about some of the young guys that we're not even up there on that graphic?
I sat there, and my guy Arizona Phil, the guru of Arizona, put this out the other day. He's at Cubs Reporter. Arizona Phil, this was his dispatch. He said, quote, and again, he doesn't have any insider. It's what he believes, and he's a very intelligent baseball
speculating.
guy.
He's speculating.
He says both Ben Brown and Cade Horton will likely have innings limits in 2025 that will restrict them to working out of the bullpen rather than starting. That's how and why Mason Miller ended up the closer in Oakland in 2024. Because if it wasn't for inning limits, he would have remained a starting pitcher. So it's entirely possible that both Brown and or Horton could end up being high leverage relievers for the Cubs in 2025. So what he's saying with those two guys, because of the injuries and stuff like that, they're going to watch those innings. And the best way to watch those innings is to use them in the bullpen as opposed to being starters.
Well, but here's the thing. I want them both to be up right away. Okay. Right away. Mm-hmm. Okay. Don't waste. If they're going to be restrictions on the number of innings and number of pitches those two are going to throw them at the big league level. Enough. Get up here. Let's go. Let's see what you got.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see what they do have. Now, Dustin, when you talk about cheap, here's my concern. The Cubs began free agency with around $55 million of room before that first luxury tax. We know, God forbid, we can't go over the first luxury tax, the threshold, right? And so adding Boyd brings that number down to around $40 million. Okay. Now we know that they got one bullpen piece that they already added. They got Eli Morgan. They got Matt Thaiss, the catcher. But we still, like I said, just like Matt Boyd can't be it, Matt Thaiss to me cannot be it for backup catcher. Like he cannot go in being your number 2 catcher. So I still think you need a solid backup experienced catcher. I think you need bullpen pieces. I think you need a closer, and you need to try and upgrade that bench. So clearly, Dustin, it doesn't look like there's enough for one of the top tier pitchers that, like Fried or Burns. Like that was never happening. I don't think that was ever happening. But for me, there is concern. Now, the other option that the Cubs can do is they can trade. And as you know, we're definitely going to be talking about this as we get to the next couple episodes of the podcast, because the winter meetings are coming up. And I think
this weekend, right? They start on Sunday. Is that accurate?
Well, I believe so. Yes. So they're going to start coming down there. They're going to start talking about things. But as I'm kind of looking at it, there is all sorts of rumors that are going around there. One of them, which we are taking a look at, is Garrett Crochet. Now, would you want him as a starter or a bullpen piece, or you don't care?
Well, I just like to see him in the Cubby uniform. I don't care what they do with him. But yeah, I think if you threw him in the rotation, look out.
So okay? Morosi said
that's a hell of a rotation.
Morosi said, trade market update: the Cubs and Reds are among the viable candidates to acquire White Sox ace Garrett Crochet. And of note, the Cubs and White Sox have made 4 trades since 2017, beginning with the Jose Quintana deal. Lord knows we love a good Cubs Sox trade, but boy, oh boy, Garrett Crochet. Now, again, I guess I'm cool with it, but when you already look at the projected rotation and you got Imanaga, Steele, Tyone, you'd want Crochet to be in there, right?
Right. I mean, if you move Tyone down a spot and your top 3 are Steele, Imanaga, and Crochet, that's a pretty good top 3.
All lefties, though.
Well, lefties, it's a problem, but we'll deal with it.
And then would you keep then Assad in the rotation and bump Boyd to the bullpen, or would you go with 4 lefties in the rotation? That's
no, real. I think you'd have to have Assad in there somewhere.
Okay, so you have to get
right. You'd have to, or one of the young guys.
Yeah. Morosi also talked about this right here. He had this little name, and he did tag you guys at the score. He said, hearing that Cubs are one of the most active teams in the industry on bullpen arms. Good names available via trade and free agency. Dustin, we've talked a lot about the amount of, there are a lot of pitchers that are ready to go, as far as Hayden Wesniewski, Caleb Killian is another name that you could throw out there. We got outfielders like, whether you're talking about Owen Casey, if you're willing to go that route, Kevin Alcantara, who's a little less polished, Canario, those are guys. I mean, do you think that they're just going to use their trade chips mainly for bullpen pieces or for Crochet? I'm just wondering how much they want to go dip into that farm system.
Right. I mean, that's okay, but let's just go to Crochet. Okay. Let's just play GM here a little bit. We did this on the Mully and Haw show today. What do you think it would take? What are you willing to give up for Garrett Crochet?
When I take a look at Crochet, to me right now, I feel like Shaw and Hoerner are the guys that I feel least inclined to give up. Anything that mentions those 2 names, I feel, if you're talking about Crochet, I'm sure they're going to want a Cubs, top 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you're going to have to lose somebody that's, whether it's Moises Ballesteros, Owen Casey, guys like that would be definitely in the mix. One of those, probably someone in the 5 to 10 range and someone in the 15 to 20, I think, to get Garrett Crochet. And
are you okay with that?
My stomach's a little queasy on it, to be honest, but I just get worried with Garrett Crochet's injury history, but that's something that you deal with. I guess, Dustin, what I'm concerned with is this Matt Boyd deal to me is just kind of like you know, I know you like to use the term scratch off lottery ticket. I mean, it really, think about as a GM, as a poker player, right? You have to play the statistical odds. Now you could have Matt Boyd and you could hit, but it's not statistically likely that he's going to have that much of an impact on the team, in my opinion. Okay. If you're telling me you're getting Corbin Burns, then I'm going to tell you that the odds are that's going to hit. Does that mean you may, you know, still lose? Yeah, you can still lose on that. But in general, the stats are much higher that you're going to be more successful if you have a guy like Corbin Burns, where to me, Matt Boyd is a wing and a prayer. Now, Dustin, we have one more rumor that's kind of been percolating here, and the Cubs in Seattle for a long time, that's where everyone has been looking as a possible landing spot for Nico Hoerner. And so Adam Jude, he writes for the Seattle Times. He had this to say about the Mariners infield reconstruction project, because if you've been watching the Mariners and what they've been doing, and maybe you haven't, they're looking for a third baseman. They're talking Alec Boehm. They're looking for a first base DH. They're looking at some of the veteran guys, maybe Goldschmidt, maybe Santana. But this is what Adam Jude of the Seattle Times had to say. Quote, "The Mariners have had preliminary talks with the Chicago Cubs about second baseman Nico Hoerner, a Gold Glove winner who offers positional versatility. The Cubs are seeking proven major league talent in talks for Hoerner," a source said. "The Mariners have cultivated a wealth of talent in the minor league system. They have more prospects, 8, than any MLB team ranked in baseball's top 100 this summer. And Seattle's front office has expressed a willingness," an industry source, "to include prospects in the right trade." So we have been talking about the smoke coming on Nico Hoerner. To me, this is really kind of, Seattle has a lot of really good young pitching. Very similar to Cleveland in that regard, that you're like, you don't even know what to do with all this pitching talent. And you can get a guy from Seattle that you could really say like, okay, I would feel like if I can get a righty from Seattle that would pitch instead of Javier Assad, now that has me really interested. That to me would be an interesting move. But again, you know, But
they have to be somebody, Crawly, that they're going to use right now. Not right somebody away, they're going to use, and not somebody they're going to try to flip around to try to get something out. Like somebody that's going to help them at Clark and Addison this baseball season.
I think Seattle has the prospects of a guy that you could sit there and say, hey, we're going to roll the dice on this guy to open the rotation. I truly do.
All right. Well, then let's go for it. Why not? Right. I mean, but how high of a prospect will it be? Because again, right now, I believe that Nico is at his lowest trade value.
I still think people know what he brings to the table as far as he's a good contact hitter. He plays Gold Glove defense, and I he's a good clubhouse guy, good team player. I think they know what they're. I don't think maybe the Cubs are going to give up some prospects in that deal to get a higher prospect from Seattle. I'm not sure. But I know that Seattle, has been interested in Nico for a while, and they have the prospect capital to give some really good guys up without it really impacting them that much. They're in that same kind of situation with the Cubs, where a lot of their guys are ready to go and have no place to pitch.
You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast, episode 97, season number 3. Does Matt Boyd do it for you, Cub fans? Don't forget to leave us one of those 5-star reviews and email us. Does Matt Boyd do it for you, Cub fans? flythew670@gmail.com. In this segment, Crawly talks to Danny Rockett to talk about Cubs caroling, the annual holiday event where Cub fans sing Cubs carols to the patrons of the bars in Wrigleyville. Sound like fun?
Join me now on the Fly the W podcast. My friend, my partner in crime, Danny Rockett. Danny, how are you, buddy?
I'm feeling pretty good. I'm it's the holiday season and I've got the spirit. What can I say? I'm full of turkey. I must have gained 5 pounds last weekend to maybe even more.
Well, when you talk about the holiday spirit, sometimes, some years are different than others. It's like, hey, I'm not really feeling it. But once it kind of hits you, when you get that Christmas cheer, you sing loud for all to hear, right?
Yeah, well, that's it. You cannot be depressed and singing at the same time, even if you're singing a sad song. At least you're feeling something. You're getting the emotions out. But it's especially singing in a chorus, which is what we do now. What is this? You always keep track of how many years. I never know. Is this 7, 8 years? What are we doing? 6? I don't even know.
I will double check. There was, I mean, if you count the virtual, but if you're talking about in person, I want to say 2018, 2019, 2020, and then 2021 was, no, 2021 I thought was virtual, right?
Oh, right. Well,
Yeah.
well, okay, I see. All right.
Because that came in the springtime.
Right.
And so then we jumped back. So I will do all the math, but
Spring.
it is that time of year. It is Cubs caroling, one of my favorite events of the year. And I think a lot of people really look forward to it, Danny, and it's become bigger and bigger every year.
Yeah, well, last year was almost unmanageable. It was that big. I mean, thank God that you were able to get enough Cubs Carol hymnals for the crowd. And no, it was about 40 people at some point. You know, we get some, we lose some as the night goes along. As it tends to, as we go around the city singing these songs. But yeah, people were raising their voices. We had a great group last year, and we've grown from, I mean, what's the first time we went out? It was like 8 or 9 of us or something, maybe 10 tops, but out into the cold Chicago night. But so you think this is 7 years, 8 years?
Yeah, it's got to be 7 or 8 years. I remember how it started was, I want to say it was the first time they had the Winterland and they had the ice skating, and we went drinking and ice skating, and I fell and hit my head like 20 times. And we realized that probably wasn't a safe or good idea. And so the next year, I think 2018 is when the Cubs caroling started. And for people that haven't been there, it's going to be this Saturday at the December 7th. We are meeting at Output Lounge at 6 p.m., correct?
Yep. Output Lounge, 6 p.m. Now, make sure it's the correct Output Lounge. There are 2 of them. Actually, there's about to be a third out in suburbs, so don't go to that one either.
This is the one by Wrigley Field.
Yeah, it's just a block north of Wrigley Field. In fact, let me just look up the
while you're looking up the address. Yeah. Here. Go ahead.
Yeah, it is 3720 North Clark Street. And yeah, just a little bit north of Wrigley Fields.
For those of you that are familiar with the Wrigleyville area, it's right next to pretty much the Metro. So if you go to the Metro, you're there. And the fun thing is that, you know, we don't start at 6 o'clock on the dot. We kind of start to mingle at Output. We have a room, and you will, like you said, we will hand out hymnals for everybody. And in the hymnals will be different Cubs themed Christmas carols. So the Christmas carols you know and love, but with a Cubs twist, correct?
Well, it's a Cubs parody song of an existing song that you know. And if you want, I can give you an example of one.
I would love it.
Do you want to, and then everybody will know what kind of thing we're doing. This one is a new one, Crawly. You have not heard this one yet. I've submitted this to Waddle and Sylvie, but so I don't think they've played it yet, because usually when they do, I hear about it. But this one is to the song. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas, but I've named it "At Least We Were Better Than the White Sox." So it goes, at least we were better than the White Sox, worst in Chicago. Things aren't going great down at Guaranteed Rate, and they played even worse out on the road. At least we were better than the White Sox, couldn't pitch or score. There were thousands of empty seats, and their owners super cheap, the worst team in sports. It's time to mock all the fans of the Sox and laugh at their expense. They come in last and their team sinking fast, make fun of Southsider friends. I bet Len Casper wishes he worked for the Cubs again. At least we were better than the White Sox. Really came up short. And they'll probably just get worse till they're hiring the hearse to carry the corpse of Jerry Reinsdorf.
Excellent song.
Dark ending.
Dark ending.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, what usually happens in this kind of situation,
everybody's going to die, right?
Yeah, is we will practice. Here's a picture of you and I on stage. We have our hymnals from last year, and we will run these songs through with everybody. Danny, you've led courses many a times in your life. So in that type of situation, you're going to sing those songs, and they are going to be, people are going to really, I think, love them. And if you're a bad singer like I am, it doesn't matter because everybody's singing and somehow it ends up sounding good.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. If more people sang together, I don't think we'd have half the societal problems we have. It really is a joyous act and it's a lot of fun. And especially if you're doing it in a group, it doesn't matter if you aren't used to singing or just are a shower singer or are really good. It doesn't, I'm a professional singer. I've sung my whole life. As a little kid, sang. One of my favorite ways to sing, even more than being on Broadway, dude, is going around with the Cub fans. It doesn't even matter, making the beautiful noise that we make together, because that is the true spirit of humanity, my friend. And I love it. And it's the true spirit of Cub fandom, because we are a special bunch.
So once we kind of get the songs down, we leave and we hit the bars all down Clark Street, heading south. And it's a lot of fun. People have no idea. It's kind of like a flash mob. And we will sit there. We usually predetermine, we'll have a whole hymnal, but we'll pick the 3 songs we're going to go, which ones are popular. And at that point in time, boom, we hit it. And then we have a drink and then we leave. And I have a siren bullhorn. And then we move on to the next bar. But that's where we start to kind of pick up different people.
There's the bullhorn. You could see it in the shot there.
You could, if you're on 670 The Score on the YouTube channel, there I am. I got the bullhorn. And there we all are just kind of singing. And the fun thing about all of this, if you have not been to Wrigley Field or the bars of Wrigleyville during Christmas time, all of them are pop-up themed. They're all Christmas themed. So that makes it even more festive.
Yeah. And this year we are staying out of the way of T-Box, which is the young people's drug crawl. We made the mistake of doing that on the same day one year, and but we're out of the way of it this year. That's, I believe, next weekend. So stay clear of Wrigleyville the following weekend. But December 7th, we want to see you at Output Lounge, and if you get there late, just look for the giant group of drunken singing people. That's us.
Now, I know for a fact that White Sox is we're better than the White Sox is going to be a hit. And all of a sudden you kind of feel sometimes there's songs that just kind of hit and others that, let's do the one that hits. Give me another hit. Give me another new one. Let me hear a new one.
All right. Well, how about this one? This one's called Nobody Is Coming to Town. This is to the tune of Santa Claus is Coming to Town. Oh, we're not gonna sell, we're not gonna buy 83 win team in 25. Nobody is coming to town. Ricketts won't pay the luxury tax. It's the same team, they're running it back. Nobody is coming to town. At least we're not the White Sox or Sacramento A's. But Hoerner spends a lot of cash and still comes in 3rd place. Oh, they need a big star. They need a big bat, but they're too scared of giant contracts. Nobody is coming to town.
Oh, that's a winner. I can tell.
Another banger.
Now, that's a banger. And I'll tell you, the one thing about that one is that's an easier one because better than the White Sox has it. Yeah. That's going to be tough after a few beers, but we'll pull it off just because it's such a good song.
Sometimes we just run them and sing them at the Output Lounge, and then we have like the same 8 we go back to every time. I mean, let me just give you some no more songs, but I've got Owen Casey to Oh Christmas Tree. We have a Harry Carey Christmas. That's a classic.
That's a classic. That's a big one.
Clark the Pantsless Mascot. We got to run that one back. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And then this one is really kind of nice. I'll just give you a little bit of this one. It's to the first Noel, but I've called it the second Morel. And it's all about Raphael Morel, Chris's brother. And I'll just give you the end.
Hold on. Before you do that, just to give our readers some context, there is Christopher Morel, who played with the Cubs, was traded to the Rays last season. He actually has a brother that almost looks exactly like him. I started talking to him because I know Christopher Morel. I started talking to him in the backfields in Arizona, and he's like, "No, soy Rafael." And I'm like, "Oh shit, like not wrong brother." So there is 2 Morels. There were 2 Morels in the Cubs organization. Please go ahead, Dan.
They do look quite similar too. I agree with that. So it's just like, well, I wasn't going to sing the whole thing, but it's like, the second Morel down in single A is Christopher's brother who's now on the Rays. And then the chorus is Morel, 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 Morel. Chris has a brother named Raphael. So it like kind of tells the story. We'll be out there teaching Cub fans what you just taught the people.
Now, the fun thing that we do besides going to the bars, and it's always kind of like, I wouldn't say it's the pinnacle, but it's the one that people remember, is we go to Winterland at Wrigley and we sing in front of the giant Christmas tree. And this is a great shot from last year. You could see the massive amounts of people. We have people in ugly sweaters, blinking lights, Santa Claus outfits, Captain Cubbo, Mai Tai guy. I mean, it is a literal who's who of Cubdom singing. And just like I said, people sit there and they stop in front of the tree and they literally watch us sing. They pull out their cameras, they start taking pictures and recording. And this is like I said, my favorite time is when we're in front of the tree doing this. They think like we actually are like paid by the Cubs to do it, when it's quite the opposite.
Yeah, we should get paid by the Cubs. Instead, they try to run us out of there. No, it is such a good time. And what a motley crew. I'm like looking around this group of people and I'm just like, some of my favorite people are in this group. And it's just, I don't know. This is the spirit of Christmas to me. This is everybody's getting together with their families and exchanging. It can be a stressful time. It can be a very lonely time. Like this is the first year I'm celebrating the holidays without my mother. And, and so to do something like this, that give the people this kind of joy, it's just such a special thing. And, everybody's invited. Like at some point, this thing's going to be so big that we're going to have to do it on multiple weekends just to like break it up. Because otherwise we need a permit and a parade. And then I need to like hire a bus and some bouncers. We actually should have bouncers anyway, to be honest.
Well, one of the fun things, one of the classic Cubs caroling moments is when we went viral one time. We were sitting there, and this is where we were in front of the tree, and we decided to sing Correa to the tune of Gloria, like we were singing about Carlos Correa when it was his big free agent class. Was that 2022, right around then? And we were singing it, and Ryan Guffey, who does the recap with Kaplan now, he was there unbeknownst to us, and he recorded it, and I think he was working at Comcast Sportsnet at the time, right?
Yeah.
And so he put it on their account and it blew up. Everybody retweeted it. It got over like 1 million views. And Carlos Correa actually responded to the video of us singing. And it was one of the funniest moments of all time. And you and I were talking that if Carlos Correa had signed with the Cubs, we were going to take full credit.
Oh, and we should have. In fact, we might have to take the non-credit or the egg on our face for him not signing with Cubs. He's like, these freaking people are a little bit too much. Why don't I just go up to Minnesota where people see him a little bit more calm and not up in my face, spitting beer breath all over me as they sing songs about me. It's like, that's a little intense, guys.
Right. But it literally, like I said, it's been a lot of fun. We usually end up finishing at Nisei Lounge, which is kind of the home base right there. One time we actually were singing for a good friend of ours was engaged or was getting married. We sang at Murphy's for his wedding party. We've had a lot of fun.
We cursed that too. He's in the middle of a divorce right
now. Oh, Bob! I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
but we definitely, boy, we got to be careful. One time we were on a trolley. We jumped on a trolley. I mean, you never know what's going to happen, and that's what makes it such a fun.
Correct me if I'm wrong, though. Didn't we have an engagement, or was that John Baker Day engagement?
I think John Baker Day was the engagement. So I don't want to have another divorce on my hand, but it's truly been a fun time. And like you said, no matter how bad things are, that's just like one night where you can just kind of forget it, smile with friends. Wrigley is so beautiful in Christmas time. I know a lot of people like to criticize, ownership and stuff like that, but hey, that is really fantastic what they put out there and just the vibes that you get. And then, like I said, all the bars in Wrigleyville kind of jumping aboard and getting those Christmas themed pop-ups. This is a fun event. So I really encourage everybody to come on out to Output. And then I'll be on social media kind of just updating where we're kind of headed. Literally, we need like those Santa Norid trackers. We need the Cubs caroling trackers so people can find us.
Should I just share my location on my iPhone and be like, hey, just follow me?
It may work here. Danny, I appreciate you jumping on, singing some songs. I know a lot of fun times that we've had doing this, and we're going to continue doing them. You have your own podcast, the Son Ranto Show, that people can tune into. Where else can people follow you on the different socials?
Well, just type in Son Ranto or Son Ranto Show, SONRANTO, on all the new places. Check me out on X because I'm real special over there these days. No, go to Blue Sky. That's where Cubs fan me lives now. All the hip people are going over to Blue Sky, but I got the Instagram, and I've been enjoying TikTok. Crawly, I've seen Crawly been out on TikTok a little bit more these days. He's keeping up with the kids.
Trying not to age myself out, but this is going to be a fun time, Danny. We always look forward to this. We always laugh and have memories and great pictures afterwards. I love looking at them, and hopefully we have some new people. And if you are one of those people that have never been but are curious as to what happens, we are non-judgmental. You come, you do what you want, and we'll have a really good time. And I really hope to see a lot of our listeners, whether from the Son Ranto Show or the Fly the W podcast or wherever, coming on out and having fun with us.
And even you can come alone too.
Yep.
Like we've had a lot of people could be like, hey, it's looked interesting. I had nothing to do. It just came down here. Figured I'd make some friends. I'm like, come on by. And then they did end up having an awesome time. Everybody they met a lot of cool people because, hey, we're Cub fans. We're cool.
And again, the numbers keep growing because once you go one time, you keep coming back. Like people literally get Airbnbs and hotels and fly in for this event. So it is the can't miss event of the winter, even better than CubsCon.
Some people even crash on your couch. Like it's crazy.
It happens. It happens, right? Danny, I appreciate you jumping on. I know you got a busy night. Thanks for making some time, and we'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Thanks, Crawly, and fly the W, everybody.
This is season 3, episode 97 of the Fly the W 670 podcast. It's time now, Crawly, to round the bases from around baseball. Don't forget, we'd love for you to give us a 5-star review. All right, Crawly, hot stove. Let's talk about it.
Yes, sir. The Cubs are not the only ones making move. That same day, Frankie Montas signed a 2-year, $34 million contract, a little bit more than what Boyd got, but he has more of a successful track record than...
He was a guy the Cubs at one point were interested in, right?
Very much so, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Dustin, off my list, we have our first scratch off Crawly's wish list. The guy I most wanted to be the backup catcher for Miguel Amaya, Kyle Higashioka, is off the list. 2 years, $12.5 million contract with a $7 million option for a third year. I think that's a steal, Dustin. I think that's a really good deal for the Rangers. I wish the Cubs could have done something similar, or would have done something similar. Finally, old friend Aroldis Chapman, closer for the 2016 World Series club. He signed a 1-year, $10.75 million contract with the Boston Red Sox. Dustin, you know he still strikes out 40% of the batters he faces?
Yeah, when I saw this on social media, I had to double check. Did I read this right? Is it too early in the morning? Am I not? Am I seeing things? That was a bit of a surprise.
I think that again, he's a guy that can get guys out still, and maybe he's not still a closer, but he can definitely, I think, get strikeouts. That's the key right there.
Swing and miss stuff, right? How about this golden at bat, Crawly?
Dustin, the winter meetings are coming up, and obviously the thing that, fans care the most about are trades and kind of making deals, all the deal making that goes on. But there's other things that happen in there. There's all sorts of like executives, team staff, media. They're all there. There's workshops. They discuss trends, exchange ideas. And a lot of the ideas that they discuss sometimes comes from the competition committee. That's comprised of 6 owners, 4 players, and 1 umpire. That was part of the collective bargaining agreement in 2022. And that's the group, Dustin, that added the pitch clock, changed the size of the bases, changed the running lanes, all that stuff, right? And they vote to adopt these changes. Some have been made, some have not. And so Commissioner Rob Manfred was asked about the success of some of these changes during an appearance on the Varsity podcast. And when discussing changes, Manfred dropped this nugget that all of a sudden became the talk of the baseball world.
Are there other changes that are brewing that are flying a little bit under the radar in the minors?
One of the best things about the success we had last year, both artistically in terms of the fan reaction, but maybe equally important, the success we had in predicting for the owners what the outcome was going to be, is that it makes people in the game more comfortable talking about change. They have some confidence that you can manage the change process in a way that produces a good outcome. So I mean, there are a variety of things that are being talked about out there. One of them, there was a little buzz around at an owners meeting, was the idea of a golden at bat. That is, putting your best player out there out of order at a particular point in the game. That rule and things like that are in the conversation only stage right now.
So this is what Manfred likes to do. He throws these test balloons out there just to see what kind of reaction it got. And Dustin, to me, I haven't seen too many positive reactions. Have you?
No. No.
Now,
I mean, let's put it this way. I wouldn't mind seeing it in the minor leagues first. See
and
how
that's
it
where
goes.
this is where all that stuff gets tested.
So I don't see why not test it, right? Why not test it? No big deal.
For me,
there's options. I know that you don't mind the idea of only the team trailing in the ninth inning or later gets to use it.
Right. So there's again, this is just, nobody really knows. The Athletic had a piece where it talked to some sources. Like Manfred said, right? This all comes back to the World Baseball Classic ending with Mike Trout batting and Shohei Ohtani on the mound. And that, you, as a baseball fan, you couldn't have asked for anything more. And so this idea is, what if you could do that all the time? And to me, no. I mean, so they got a couple different options that they listed, right? Each team gets to pick one at bat at any point in the game, but only once to play its golden at bat card. So you know how Pat Hughes likes to say, sometimes a turning point moment can come early. Maybe it's in the second inning, bases loaded, no outs against a good pitcher. Maybe then you want to do it. Maybe you want it later. There's another option. Each team gets one golden at bat per game, except only in the seventh inning or later. What about the golden at bat is only when a team is trailing or tied in the ninth or later? Okay. And either one of those. Do one of those options do it for you more than the other?
Now I think I go at any point. If you're going to do it, I think you should be able to do it at any point.
At any point. Okay.
Any point. But then I like the idea possibly of a golden pitcher. Okay, like a counter move. Okay, I'll give you your golden hitter, and now I'm going to bring in my golden pitcher.
See, but to me, like, it's different because with a golden hitter, like, a hitter can come off the bench anytime and hit and not be affected. A pitcher, you got to warm up, and then once they're used, and then they can't come back. So it's kind of different. To me, it makes no sense. When you talk about the success of the rules that have been made, they haven't drastically changed the game as far as what the game is about. When you talk about the pitch clock, Dustin, that's not new. That's been on the books forever. It just wasn't enforced.
Right.
When you talk about a running lane, there's always been a running lane. You've just added a little bit of size to that. The bases, stolen bases were down. We can make them a little bit bigger, and that'll kind of make things a little bit better. Okay, I'm cool with all those things. You're not affecting the actual, the way that the game.
They're changing. I mean, they're changing it. They're changing the game, no doubt. That's a different game.
I do not like it at all. I don't think it's a good idea. And you know what bothers me the most about him floating that on the podcast is that there was some really good content in the podcast that I want to talk about in the next episode.
No, there's some good stuff. Yep, I told you that for baseball geeks, that was a good one.
That was a good one, and what
wide-ranging interview with him.
And the thing is Manfred, he knows what the problem is. It's not this idea of a golden batter. And we'll talk about what the problem with baseball and why it's not popular, but they have made it so that games are moving along. It's not all this dead time, and people have enjoyed that, Dustin. It's brought other people back to the games. I've known people as a season ticket holder that said, yeah, I can go to games now because the game's not ending at 10:30 at 11 because games are taking 3.5 hours, 4 hours. And so, it's made it better. There's other issues. But basically that whole podcast got boiled down to this, cockamamie idea that just is absolutely awful.
Yep. Yeah, it's not. I've not heard a ton of positivity about it. How about a couple of bad contracts you got to want to talk about?
Yeah, the Athletic had a piece about the 10 worst contracts. A couple of them made me giggle, and I know a couple of these we've talked about. Nick Castellanos, Philadelphia Phillies, comes in at number 10. 5 years, $100 million. In 2025, he's set to make $20 million. In 2026, $20 million. He's kind of struggled. He's only been worth 1.4 F4 over the last 3 seasons. He's had his struggles. His slumps come bad when they do come. His defense is just awful. But Dustin, I know that was somebody that Cub fans were disappointed when he did not re-sign with the Cubs.
Sure were. He looked good in that Cub uniform. Looked like he could be a nice piece out in right field.
Number 9, Carlos Rodon. I know you and I talked about this extensively. He did really good. He went to San Fran, right? First, after the White Sox. And then he goes to the Yankees, 6 years, $162 million deal, $28 million roughly for the next 4 years. It looked real bad early on, but still doesn't look good. But his second half was a lot better than his first half.
Yeah, good for him. He worked hard. I mean, he battled his rear end off to get back, and I'm happy for him and his family. I'm just glad that this was not the Ricketts money and Cub fans having to deal with that.
31 home runs in 2024, tied for second highest total in the majors.
Yeah.
Xander Bogaerts. We talked about that in that short.
He was a guy I wanted. I'll admit it. He was a guy I wanted.
I was Trey Turner. You were Xander Bogaerts. 11-year, $280 million. He makes
not for that much money. I never wanted him for that kind of dough. But
from 2025 to 2033, he's making $25 million every year.
It's just crazy.
Oof.
And this is why Crawly. I'm not saying that this is Juan Soto, okay, but this is why people don't want to get involved in these 10-year plus contracts.
Yeah, Jacob deGrom, giving a guy that injury prone all 5 years and 185. I always thought that was a bad idea. That you can't give a guy that's never healthy like that. No, it doesn't work for me. This is one, Dustin, that when I saw it, I thought of you instantly. Number 6, ready? Mike Trout, original deal, 12 years, $426 million. So nearly $500 million. But Dustin, he has been struggling, and they made a very good comp to Ken Griffey Jr. as very similar in the fact that, when he was at his prime, probably one of the best generational players we've seen. But like Griffey, he's kind of just fallen off with injuries, just nonstop. You know what I mean? It is lately. It seemed like the Cincinnati Reds version of Griffey instead of the Seattle Mariners.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Yeah, good way to put it.
They're talking about moving Trout away from center and having him play more outfield or DH. So, I mean, 2030, they're going to be paying him $37 million every year till then. How about Trevor Story, Boston Red Sox? I don't think that was ever really too much into the Cubs. 6 years, $140 million. Another guy that can't stay healthy. Giancarlo Stanton, 13 years, $325 million. He was really good in the playoffs, but that contract hasn't looked great. Number 3, Dustin, you ready for number 3? Javi Baez. 6 years, $140 million. They still have to pay him $25 million next year, 24 in 26, 27. He has been awful. He can still do the El Mago stuff, but his offense has been just brutal. His defense has been even worse, which was shocking to me. The only thing is he struck down on his strikeout rate, but occasionally you see those at bats where you just shake your head and you're like, what is he swinging at? Yeah. Oh my God. Number 2, Dustin, Chris Bryant, Colorado Rockies, 7-year.
A lot of ex-Cub factor on this list.
There's a lot of ex-Chicago all over the place on this one. Dustin, when we were talking, I was on a different podcast earlier. We talked about who would you want to keep if you only keep Baez, Rizzo, or Bryant. I thought that Baez, his body would kind of shut down, and because Baez is a pure athletic freak, you know what I mean? But once he started to age, I thought it was going to age bad. Rizzo had a bad back that made me nervous, and honestly, the back hasn't been as big an issue as other things for him as far as injuries. But Chris Bryant, 7 years, $182 million. He's going to get paid $27 million in 2025, 2026, 2027, and 2028. he has been,
It's just crazy.
I mean,
crazy.
it has been absolutely awful. How about this? He's played only 159 games in 3 seasons with the Rockies. Unbelievable. He's battled plantar fasciitis, multiple back issues, severe arthritis. He's off third now. He's at first base, but oh my God. And then finally, Dustin, a number 1 bad contract was a guy I wanted the Cubs to sign, Anthony Rendon. He used to kill the Cubs, if you remember that. He signed to the Angels, 7 years, 245. He's been awful. He's going to make $38 million in 25, 26. Not only has he been injured, not only has he been at bad, but you know, it's his attitude's just been crap.
Right, the love of the game, right? He's been talking about he doesn't sure about the love of the game anymore.
Right. So that was the top 10 worst contracts in baseball right now.
What an interesting list. And then we had the great fortune today to talk to Pat and Ron on the Mully and Haw show as they've announced a extension for them with Cubs Radio and with the Score.
This was such a great moment. I got to play this clip here.
I think in our business that would be very presumptuous to think you would stay in any job for 30 years, let alone a prime position like this. So I'm so grateful that I can't even explain how much. But I want to say thanks to Colin Faulkner, Cubs vice president, for working on the contract with Ronnie and me, and also to Crane Kenny and Tom Ricketts, upper management with the Cubs, because it was a process, but it was very easy. Colin did a great job. And Ronnie, when you think about the audience that we get to work for, the ballpark we get to work for or work in, and just to work with each other, I feel so very fortunate on all of those counts. I think
So, you know, Dustin, I sit there and I think about it. You know, we had Pat on the last podcast, and it was so much fun talking to the Hall of Famer. But to me, it is such a good broadcast. I think sometimes people don't really realize how special it is until you hear other broadcasters. It really, to have Pat and Ron, and when I talked to Pat and he said, you know, this is going to be his 30th year.
It's amazing.
As Cubs broadcaster.
And that's what that cut was referencing when Mully asked him, you know, wow, congratulations, 30 years.
It's been such a joy, whether you go back to the old Pat and Ron Santo days to, I just feel like Pat and Ron Coomer have just been absolutely just clicking on all cylinders. We are blessed in Chicago to have such a good radio broadcast. And to me, I know it's fun to watch on TV, Dustin, but I know, like, sometimes, like you too, I like just doing things and having the radio on and just listening to it. I don't think there's any sport that translates better on the radio than baseball.
No, not a one. No doubt about that. Congratulations to Pat and Ron. All right, Crawly, that's a wrap. Don't forget to listen, download, review, and subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. Follow on the socials, Facebook, Instagram. We're on Twitter. You can email us, flythew670@gmail.com, and watch us by subscribing to the 670 The Score YouTube channel. Crawly, enjoy the weekend. If something crazy happens, we'll get back to podcasting for the people. Otherwise, we'll get together early next week.
Yes, sir. And you know what? That hot stove is really starting to heat up. Winter meetings are right around the corner. It's time to get excited. Go Cubs! Hey guys, it's Crawly. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date with our latest episodes. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Go Cubs!